Amount of people who sometimes go, we need a marketing person, so we're going to hire one, and then go, well, what have I hired them for?
Welcome to the ScaleUP Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about all things marketing, including strategies, MDF funds, where to start, when to stop.
ScaleUP, the podcast for driving growth in your MSP, delivered by industry experts.
Steph, for our audience, a little bit of background of where you are now and how you've got to that part in your journey.
Yeah, of course. So I've been at OpenText Cybersecurity for 2 years now as their channel marketing manager. Prior to that, I've been in the vendor landscape for another year or so. I spent 4 years in distribution prior to that. But I actually started out in a little hardware reseller back in 2015. So I've been in the channel for about 10 years now.
Wow, and obviously different sizes of budgets and target audience and where that's going.
Absolutely, yeah, massively different. Kind of coming from a very regional approach to the marketing to now being in an organization where I can work globally, that the difference is huge.
Wow. So marketing then, from an MSP point of view, what do you see with your partners that you're helping to get them on that journey of marketing? So if you've got an MSP that's not doing a lot of marketing at this moment in time, they're relying a lot on word of mouth. Yeah. What's the strategy? What do you think an MSP of that size should start with?
My initial thing is don't ever come to me and say, I want to do some marketing. I would always say have a plan in the back of your mind of what it is you really think you want to do before you come to me, because we are here to help you as much as you want to be assisted. But at the same time, I don't know your business inside and out. You are the only person that knows your business strategy. Sit down with your sales team, if you have internal marketing as well, agree where you're looking to go and what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then start to build out your strategy from there. Don't go, we need to do something, so we're going to do it, and then we'll see how it goes. Because that's where you see an inconsistency in the marketing strategy that's being brought to the table. You see activities being picked up and then dropped very quickly. You don't see follow up in the right way. So if you decide to do an event, but then you don't get the results that you wanted off the back of it, you'll go, oh, I'm not doing that again. But it's because you didn't put the time in to think about what it was that needed to happen.
So is it more like you're basically saying, work out what the outcome you need is from marketing or the activities you need to do, and then backtrack on how you're going to do it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you're a typical MSP and let's say you're trying to add X amount of clients per month or per year, what are the things that you're seeing people be successful at doing in your opinion?
Yeah, so I'm definitely seeing a lot of success in the more regional business shows that tend to be held. I've seen a lot of people going to things that are held in, on a county basis or anything like that, and they seem to be picking up a lot of clients who are local to them, which works because they've also got referenceability from other people that they probably know. But I think with MSP marketing as a whole, a lot of what's different about it is the fact that you have that approachability and you create that kind of trusted partnership with the organization that you're partnering with. It's not about selling a service and then running away again. It's about making sure that you have that stickiness and consistency. By meeting somebody face to face, I think you get that a lot better than you would from an email campaign or telemarketing or something like that.
And I suppose it could be that if you meet them once at an event or something, then it's just working out ways of how do you keep on reinforcing those touch points with that person, right?
Absolutely. If you've got their details once, as long as they've consented to be contacted, you can contact them as many times and as many different ways as you like. Send them some direct mail. Who doesn't love getting posts these days? Send them an email. Drop them a call every 6 months. It's only a no until it's a yes.
I think that's a great, interesting topic, actually. It's something I learned from another vendor about even it's not a no until it's a yes. So a lot of people, when they get that first no or they lose the proposal that they put in front of them, maybe it's an IT support contract, they close that engagement and there's nothing that happens after the effect. But actually what I learned was nothing's done until they tell you to go away.
Absolutely. And 6 months, a year is a long time in terms of business. Anything can change in that 6 months, 1 year, right? So they could have a change in leadership, which means that their strategy is changing. So the services they take from you might be different. It might be that your portfolio has evolved and you've taken on some new products that actually they don't have in their current provider. And you can add that as another layer. You don't have to do everything as long as you can do some. land and expand.
So a lot of the small MSPs I talk to haven't got a marketing function. They might have a little bit of outsourcing from sort of a virtual marketing person maybe, or using other things that you can do in the market. What when we talk about strategy, how does someone start this marketing strategy? What does that contain? What do they need to do?
Again, I think you need to go back to the very, very basic levels of what it is you're trying to achieve. We're looking to achieve growth through acquiring clients. We're looking to achieve growth by expanding what we already have within our existing clients. That will tell you roughly where you need to start moving your marketing strategy to. If you're looking to do that upsell, cross-sell piece within an existing customer, then you look to have a more personal approach. You go in, you try and talk to them, you have your meetings with them. I think you invite them to little briefings and those sorts of things. Low touch, but high quality. If you're looking to bring on more people, then you need to sit there and go, how does that look? How many clients are we looking to bring on? What kind of clients are we looking to bring on? Because I think oftentimes people just go, we need more. And they don't think, maybe we should approach a specific vertical. Maybe we should take a step back and go, do you know what? We're really strong in architecture firms. So let's go out to other architecture firms and tell them how strong we are here. Or if you have a strong regional story that's a part of who you are as a business, then you make sure you're reaching out to everybody that's within your region. But whatever you do, it has to be very specific to your business. You can't take an approach that you think worked for somebody else and slap it onto you, because that's never going to work. It's just going to look false.
Let's talk a bit about vertical marketing, because that's quite interesting. One of the things you said there. Most MSPs, especially say up to kind of £4 or £5 million, tend to market to everybody. So they don't really have a defined vertical, and they'll take whatever they can, wherever they can, right? What do you think, in your opinion, obviously you spoke about vertical marketing, why do you think that's an easier approach than the typical MSP doing?
Because it's a lot easier to be targeted if you're sticking with one area. So you don't feel that you're spreading yourselves too thinly around, oh, have we got something for this person and that person and the other person? But also, in terms of the strategies that you can employ, if you're looking at having a mix of online and offline marketing, for example. So if you wanted to bring in some digital strategy there, it's very simple to target specific verticals. So your messaging is more likely to get in front of the people that you're expecting it to go in front of, and it stays relevant and true. Whereas if you're trying to go to everybody with the same message, you're being too generalized and you're not going to get those quality connections with the potential client that you think you're going to get, because they go, oh, well, this is just another person that does IT. Not this person understands what my business need is, or I can see from referenceability and case studies and things like that, that this person understands what it's like for an architecture firm.
Yeah.
We need to support CAD, for example, is one thing they need.
So I suppose in the MSP world, everyone's in a switch market, right? So generally speaking, everybody already has a IT provider of some sort. So they're switching from one provider to another. So there are some generic themes or trigger points or pain points why people switch. Maybe they're unhappy, maybe they're not getting the right advice, they're not getting the right service, etc., etc. But what you're saying is not just those generic things, overlay that with a specific message for the industry, whatever that may be, so that it actually refines the message and tailors it to that company you're talking to make it a lot more relevant.
Absolutely. And then you look a lot more, what's the right word I'm looking for here? You look a lot more like you know your onions, is what I'll go with.
We'll say amazing.
Let's say amazing.
You look amazing. You look
Let's say amazing.
Yeah.
You look professional and put together.
You mentioned a minute ago about online and offline marketing. A lot of questions I always get asked is like, what types of marketing should
So
I
it's
do?
one with the internet connection and one without.
Yeah, but like, where should I spend my money? Like, I've got X amount of budget as a small MSP or even a medium-sized MSP. Where am I spending my money? What's going to work, sort of thing? What do you think?
So again, I think it depends how you're defining that initial strategy. If you're going to look down a vertical route or you're looking to be very targeted and specific, absolutely online is going to be your friend, because there are so many different tools out there that you can use in order to refine that messaging, make sure it's getting repeatedly in front of the right people. What I do like about offline marketing, events, things like that, it's that personal touch. but it's also brand awareness. So, every time you go to a business show or even one of the really big shows, and you've got a small stand or a big stand, people see that logo and it does register somewhere in the brain. So it does build that name and that knowledge. But I don't think you can rely solely on either side. I'm a traditionalist at heart, so I always prefer a little bit more offline marketing because I like to go out and meet people. That's where I feel I do my best work. And if you certainly feel that you have that strength within your organization, then continue to do it. But maybe host your own events. Once you've got that brand awareness, start doing your own breakfast briefings. Don't rely on kind of other people's efforts. But then if you're slightly smaller or a bit more boutique, absolutely keep that online in the mix. LinkedIn is your friend. I would advise against some social media marketing, but certainly I think LinkedIn's a really valuable place to be going.
Oh, what social media marketing would you advise against?
I don't see particular value in the moment at things like Facebook marketing. I've been seeing some people start to spend money on, and I'm a little concerned that people are starting to blur the line between business to business and business to consumer.
Well, I think on LinkedIn, actually, it's interesting because there's so many people posting more personal content on LinkedIn versus business content these days.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fine for a personal page because that's your personal brand. But when it comes to your business content, try and make sure that you're keeping it snappy and to the point. If it's video content, keep it professional, those sorts of things, like absolutely your personal LinkedIn page is your own place to showcase yourself, but your business page is where you showcase your business. So remember to keep that distinction, I think.
Yeah. So just talking about events, because I assume OpenText must go to lots of MSP events, right?
We do, yes.
So if you did not verticalize as a company, it makes it a lot harder to spend your money to get effectiveness unless you're going to an event that's specific to the vertical market, right? Like you guys go to MSP events because your customers are MSPs. So if an MSP did actually decide that I want my vertical to be accountants or I want my vertical to be legal people or creative people or whatever it may be, there probably are events like that, right?
Of course there are. Yeah, everybody has their own industry standard events. So if you were part of REBA, for example, they always have an annual conference, and that's for accountancy. So, you could get a small stand there and you could say, hey, we have 10 clients who are also accountants, and we think it'd be really valuable if you came and had a chat with us, have some sweets from our stall, do that nice face-to-face thing, but you've got that referenceability, particularly if you've got actual clients in that room.
One thing that's going through my mind is you've got this owner that's just starting off on marketing. They hire a marketing person. What do you think they should be monitoring that marketing person on? What does success look like in that period of time?
When built into your strategy and certainly taking them on within those first sort of 3 months, I'd say what you want to be understanding is what they know about your business. Because in order to be an effective marketer, you need to actually know what you're marketing. And I think a lot of people can come in and they talk very well about the practicalities of marketing, but not necessarily understanding why it's relevant to that business. So I think it's really important to make sure you've instilled a solid, confident grounding in the employee to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're going out there, and this is why. Then you do need to put a little bit of trust and faith in them, especially if you're not an organization that's historically had marketing people, and then go, tell me what you would do, and then we can have this discussion about how it fits with our strategy.
Yeah, we've just recently built a target client profile, what our voice is going to look like, so they know how to write material. But then looking further ahead, sort of maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 12 months. What are you looking to sanity check that they're doing what you've employed them to do? What sort of things would you monitor them on?
Again, that's worked on the basis of what is the marketing function doing for your organization? Is it growing brand awareness, which is quite an intangible thing sometimes to monitor? Or are you saying we want to look at client retention or client growth? Or are we talking about how much spend are we seeing increasing or decreasing depending on, are people taking new services from us? Or are they actually dropping services? Are we not talking to them in the right way? How have we spoken to our customers recently? Are we even doing it? The amount of people that don't have a regular cadence with existing clients is astonishing. So you want to be looking at those sorts of things and understanding, right, okay, how are we against where we were before you came into the business? And then where do we feel like we could improve? And how does that map onto the strategy that we have for our business?
Okay. So yeah, it's all about having that plan. I mean, we've talked about in other blogs about you need to have a plan before you actually hire that person.
Absolutely. And I think the amount of people who sometimes go, we need a marketing person, so we're going to hire one, and then go, but what have I hired them for? I see it a lot. And yeah, I think you do really need to understand, right, we're bringing this person in and we want them to be really good at social, for example, because we want to use more online and social media marketing, or we want them to be an events pro because we want to be doing more events and we want to build our own event series. You have to understand what it is, those strengths, those weaknesses that you're looking for in the hire, as well as actually what you want in the role and the business strategy.
But I suppose kind of ultimately for a lot of small businesses, MSPs as well, when they're hiring their first marketing resource, there's some type of revenue generation link there, right? They're going to grow by adding net new customers, or they're going to sell to existing clients. So when it comes back to setting out success with that person, I think what you're saying is you should actually work out what that looks like. If you're going to grow revenue by X amount of clients, or you're going to increase your existing customers spending X with you, work that out, and then you can probably backtrack off those numbers to work out what marketing is going to need to deliver.
Yeah.
And I suppose from a delivery point of view, there must be an activity type thing that that you've got to deliver X amount of activities, right? So in your current role, are there X amount of, how do you get measured actually in your current role? What does success look like for you?
Success for me typically looks like client retention.
Okay.
For the most part. Obviously, growth is a huge indicator for any business, I think, particularly at a time like this. But again, I think even in our landscape, it's very much switch, not new, right? So it's understanding how are we improving that communication with those partners in order to retain them, move them over, and then what is interesting to them? What is the value that we can offer them?
And if you're kind of advising another vendor who had a similar problem where they're like, look, we're worried about retention at the moment, what are the practical things that you think you can do as a marketeer to help with retention of clients?
I always think it's to do with enablement and giving them the information that they require at any time in order to have their business run successfully. So you, as an MSP, may have people who have varying levels of interest in their actual technology estate. You might have somebody that doesn't care and washes their hands of it entirely and passes it straight over to you. You might have someone who's got a couple of toes in the water but isn't that into it. Or you might have someone who's like, I just can't do the day-to-day, but I'm really interested in everything that's happening. By making sure that they understand why you're making the decisions you're making for them, sometimes I think actually really helps with that retention.
You mentioned a minute ago about adding value to your partners, MSPs. One of the sort of hidden gems that I see is MDF funds. Everybody talks about it like it's a new shiny gem. I'm going to go and get MDF funds, but then I don't see many people actually executing on that.
No, and I read a study recently that said that up to 60% of MDF that's allocated by vendors quarterly is unspent.
Can you just clarify for everyone who may not know what MDF means?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's marketing development funds. MDE, sometimes it's called, but usually MDF.
And what is it?
So it's funds that you can get from a vendor in order to run marketing activities in collaboration with that vendor. And then based on your success, you can kind of expect that money back. It's slightly different to the co-op model, which also exists, which is based on the more you sell, the more they'll give you back. And then you can claim against that. But MDF is an upfront process.
Okay, and if one was to apply for an MDF fund with somebody, do you put some sort of case together to say, I'm going to do X amount of activity that's going to cost this, therefore can you front some of it or all of it?
Absolutely. So most vendors now will have a standardized MDF request form. So it'll say, what kind of activity are you looking to do? When is it expected to take place? What do you expect the results are going to be? And try and stay honest to that, because obviously you will be asked about it when the end of the activity rolls around. How much you're expecting for it and how much the vendor is willing to give you is dependent on their own partner program. But you can apply for that up front, and if it's signed off and they say yes, take it, run your activity, finish your activity, report back to your vendor, and if they're happy with your performance, they'll pay out on.
And what are the activities that you've seen in the past work well to deliver the performance that gives a win-win for both sides?
So one of the most successful ones that we see even now is telemarketing. A lot of people are unsure about telemarketing because it can be quite a densely populated field. And how do you know you're going to get a good company? All those sorts of things. But I think if you've got the right scripting, you can actually see some really good opportunities come off the back of that. So yeah, engage a good telemarketer would be my advice if you're going to do that. I think also anything where you've got multiple streams that are feeding into one thing. So I worked with a partner recently who did a fairly large event, but off the back of that, they were also running different email campaigns and things like that. That mix of, as I was saying, online, offline, that helps to deliver revenue in ways that even if they don't necessarily turn up to your event, they picked up the email. You've got that traceability your side, so you can go, oh yeah, well that came off the back of that. And then the vendor looks at it and goes, wow, they've actually exceeded because we only based it on the event numbers.
Okay.
Have you got any thoughts of why people don't do it? Because it sounds like basically
It's a form, isn't it?
it's
Who
a
likes
form.
filling in a form?
Yeah.
There's that. There's the fact that it's a form. It is quite complex. And I think if you don't have dedicated marketing function, it's a lot of admin, right? And then, of course, to put it all together, there are certain things you need to provide as your proof of execution, like invoices, opportunity information. If you're running your own business, you don't want to take half hour out of your day or however long it's going to be to sort that all out. And then, is it on a portal? Is it an email I have to send? How many different ways are there that people can do this? So I think that tends to be the thing that stands in the way, but also people just don't know it's there. A lot of vendors I don't think are going out there and talking about it enough, and I don't think the partners think to ask the question.
Why are vendors not going out there talking to people about it? It seems a bit kind of, you've got these funds,
Yeah.
you want to help other businesses grow as well as your own. Why are they not openly talking to them about it?
Honestly, I couldn't answer that question. I mean, it's always been a big part of the way that I go out to my partners and to the channel and say, look, we want to help you succeed. We want to help you grow. I have, the ability to help you out here. Would you be interested in taking it up? 9 times out of 10, absolutely, they want that. So I think you would have to ask some other vendors.
I think what I see working really well is when the MSP has got someone that owns this responsibility, not just MDF funds, but owns the responsibility of managing, building relationships and working with the vendor.
Yeah.
So that can be down to technical certification, it could be the MDFs, it could be actually understanding what does your success look like and how can they help you to be successful with that, which then means you're more in line to help them to do what their success looks like.
Yeah.
And I think so many times we buy a SKU and it's just a number, and then we don't put any effort into actually building the relationship with the vendor.
Yeah, and you've just gone, yeah, okay, we've got this line item, it's on the invoice, perfect. I think sometimes that's where you can actually, as an MSP, stand out a little further by also willingly engaging in that relationship. I think it's really useful to be having a two-way conversation with any vendors that you're working with all the time. Not just what are you doing for me, but what can we help you with? Because sometimes that's actually a really interesting conversation is we don't know what we're missing in vendor land or our little cloud, So I think it's got to be a dialogue. If you're going to work with a vendor, you need to have a dialogue, not just doing whatever you feel is being directed of you.
In MDF funds, are there any scenarios where an MSP's come up to you and said, hey, I'm going to keep the numbers around here. Hey, I need £5,000 because I'm going to outreach to X amount of customers. There's a company I'm outsourcing this all to, and it's going to cost £5,000, but they assure me they're going to deliver X results. Is that something that you would entertain generally? I know you're putting you on the spot here, but I'm just thinking of the theory behind it.
Yeah, so it is dependent on the way in which you propose that, I suppose. If you can show that they've got some success, if you can go back if anybody has any questions for you, then yes, in theory. But in practice, it depends on the vendor. It depends what different things you need to do to satisfy their criteria.
And what are the kind of, I won't talk about the minimum amounts, but what's the sort of maximum you've ever seen given out on an MDF fund to a partner?
It was when I was in distribution and it was about $40,000.
It's quite a lot. So basically, we can get $40,000. We just bring you a couple of bar receipts and
Yeah,
we won 2 or 3
absolutely.
deals. And
Yeah,
we're done, right?
absolutely. As long as you bought me a drink on that bar receipt, it's
Okay,
fine.
that's not a problem. We could do that.
And I think there's also, people don't realise how much the vendor will actually help them. Like I remember in my last MSP, we actually had 2 people from that vendor come on the actual networking event and present as us, because they've got the knowledge and they can present as you or present as that vendor.
Absolutely. And we aren't there to just dictate. I think people sometimes think that that's what vendors are there to do. That's not my opinion of what we're there to do. We're there to work with partners. We are there to grow success together. You know, your success and our success are often mutually beneficial. So why would I not help you? But also, I think it's really nice sometimes to go out and work with a partner and see what's actually happening on the coalface. Because sometimes you can feel removed from it by not seeing what's going out in the real world.
Yeah, and that helps you to tailor your message to the rest of the MSP.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've always enjoyed working collaboratively with partners in that fashion, and I think it should continue.
So as you said, you've always worked with a lot of MSPs. Well, not always, the last few years you've done MSPs and collaborative. Is there anything that stands out to you that has been a real thing that people shouldn't do because it fails?
In restraint to marketing.
In restraint to
Okay,
marketing,
just
on MSPs.
qualifying that in case. Yeah.
Yes, I think people are too quick to fail these days. I think they will implement something and it will run for a couple of weeks and they'll go, we're not seeing results, we're stopping it. And it's like, actually, like with anything else in your business, sometimes it takes time to see that progress. Just because you're not seeing a return like immediately doesn't mean that it's not working. You know, if you rang a prospective client tomorrow and they said no thank you and put the phone down, would you then go, well, I'm just going to close the business? You wouldn't. So you have to stay consistent in what you're trying to do, accept that some things won't work, but learn from the fact that they didn't work and actually sit back and once an activity has ended or a program of whatever has ended, go, what did we actually do really well here and what can we learn from? Because not everything will be 100% successful, but everything will have successes within it.
So I suppose what you're saying is people are too quick to judge on a small amount of activity before letting it run for a longer period of time and then assessing actually, has that done well or has it not?
Absolutely.
And I suppose a part of what you're saying is around consistency, whether that's activity or money you're spending in marketing. If people aren't consistent, then they can't expect to get results.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the link between sales and marketing departments?
The two should be really well aligned. I always think it's a bit chicken and egg as to who feeds who. You know, some people say marketing feeds sales, some people say sales feed marketing. I leave that to other people to have that argument. But I personally believe my best work is done when I'm aligned closely to a sales team, because then I understand exactly what they're trying to achieve. And then I can take that back to the business and go, this is what we need for this.
Yeah, because quite often what I see is marketing's delivering this amount of content, sales is needing this content, and they never align.
And there's no marriage. Yeah, no, absolutely. I personally do think they should be very closely aligned and you should work together on understanding what a content plan could look like. Obviously, there is a rule of averages. Not everything will be delivered, but the majority
By the
of
marketing
things...
people or the salespeople?
Both. I plead the fifth on that one. Yes, but you know, as long as you're working together towards a common goal and the sales team are understanding what the marketing team are doing, the marketing team can see where the sales team are going, I think you're generally set up for success there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think aligning both of them will equal success. We used to run a joint marketing and sales meeting in my MSP where sometimes there was a bit of friction between both heads, but it was friction for the right reason because they wanted the same end goal.
And I think that's typically what people forget, is that just because you've got two different ways of getting there doesn't mean you're not both aiming for the same thing. We all want success.
So we've spoken a lot about consistency and making sure that people stay consistent to get results, right? But like all things in life, there has to be a point where you need to work out, actually, this isn't working out, right?
Mhm.
This is not delivering the results we need it to deliver. What does that look like? Have you been through that process before?
Yes. So oftentimes, as a marketer, you will try different things to try and, make it interesting and different. Eventually, you come to a point where you go, I've either spent my budget, which is generally a big concern, or I've spent too much of my time on this. If you see that the amount of time going into it is not giving you the output that you require, kill it.
And when you're meaning time, are you meaning that you're trying to make whatever you're doing better and refining it?
Sometimes, or sometimes you're just throwing a lot of energy at it that doesn't need to be there. I remember many years ago running an event that wasn't going to succeed, but I felt that it needed to continue because that was what I had been tasked to do, and that was what I'd agreed with the organisation. And we're running and we're running and we're running, and then at the end, I just said, "Look, this isn't going to end well for you because you're going to have an empty room with nobody in it that you've just paid for, and I have nothing to show my team. What if we stop this activity now? We go back, we look at what we can still do with those funds in the available time." So I was using MDF. This is when I was in a reseller. And then we realign our plans. We're a little bit agile about it, and we do something different. That's what we did. We went with something that we knew had proven success for that business, and we managed to actually turn, I think it was £50,000 profit.
Nice.
To summarize then, sort of key takeaways from this discussion, I think for me, mine is about having that strategy and plan. So before you start, you need to know where you're going and how you're going to track this and what does the target audience look like before you even think about doing any marketing. What about yourself, mate?
I think my key takeaway is if you're actually not doing any marketing at the moment, that you should start to look to do something to support the activities that you want in your business. So my takeaway is, do some marketing.
Yeah. My takeaway would be use that MDF. It's available to you. So use it, apply for it, ask all your vendors. If you do one thing today, email all your vendors and say, hey, do you have an MDF program?
Steph, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. Guys, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and like below on the YouTube buttons. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe.